Hi everyone, it's Michelle. Welcome back. So today I thought I would catch you up on what I've been reading. And what I'm going to try to do today is get through all the books that I haven't talked to you about yet. And there's quite a few of them, so I'm going to try and move rather quickly so the video isn't too long. But if you like these type of videos, perhaps it's okay that it's a little bit longer. Let's get started. I should mention, because it's sort of like the elephant in the room, this lipstick. I never wear colors like this, but it's been my mission as we move towards the holiday season to find a really good red for me to wear. And I found this one a couple days ago, and I really do like it. I can't stop wearing it. And I'll tell you what it is, because I do like the formula a lot. It's hard to wear a red when you're mature if it's going to bleed in your lines and that kind of thing. And this doesn't. And it is a new formula. It's one of the MAC lip tensities. So this is a lipstick. They're new. It is a lipstick with pure pigment in it. So it is, when you put it on, it is like whatever the color is, it's like pow. But it feels really nice on the lips. It's a very thick formula, so when you first put it on, it almost drags on the lips a little bit, which for me is usually like no. But in about 2 or 3 minutes, it just sort of warms to the lips and just settles in, and you get this nice sort of semi-glossy look to it. That I only have the lipstick on, and it sort of fills in all the lines, and I've been wearing it for a couple days. It wears so long, and when it wears off, it just leaves a stain on your lips, really nice. And for me, it's not bleeding at all because it's a thicker formula. It's not really sticky. No, it's not sticky. It almost feels like you don't have anything on your lips after a while. And so every time I pass by a mirror, I'm like, wow, because I think I don't have lipstick on. But they're really nice. They come in packaging that looks like this, so whatever the color of the tube is. This is in the color Mulling Spices, but they have a lot of reds. I'll just show it to you. It's what I have on my lips, so I'm not going to swatch it, because if I swatch it on my hand, I'll never get it off. It is one, because it's so pigmented, that you have to, sort of put your finger in your mouth and make sure you get all the excess off so it doesn't end up on your teeth. But I'm loving it. You can let me know what you think of the color, but I think this is going to be my holiday red. So let me know what you think. Now let's get into the books. So the first 3 books I'm going to talk about are all about bookshops. They're all fiction, but they're kind of, well, the first 2 are very similar stories, so we'll move quickly through these. So the first one is How to Find Love in a Bookshop, and this is by Veronica Henry. This was a cute story. So this is about, this is a story about a girl who's, and we learned this very early on, so this is not, yeah, it's on the back of the book, it's not a spoiler. She inherits this, her father dies, she kind of commits to him that, she will keep this bookshop open. And it's called Nightingale Books, and it's about a little bookshop, and she, so she goes in to try and run the bookshop, and I think in the beginning she thinks, oh, I'll just get it running, see what the finances are like, and if I have to sell everything off and close it, because it's losing money, then that's what I'll do. But this is a story of what happens as she goes in there and meets all the characters who interacted with her father for so long, and tries to run the bookstore and kind of what happens. And I loved this story, actually. This is a pretty good story. A lot of interesting characters. I love reading about books and bookshops, so this for me was right up my alley. If you love reading about bookshops, I highly recommend this. It's a lot about love, and there's a lot of love stories going on in here and stuff like that. So it's really nice, easy read that made you feel good. Another very similar book that I read was called A Very Special Year. This is more of a novella by Thomas, I don't know how to say his last name, Montasseur. I believe this was translated from French, maybe? I think this might have been translated from French. But anyway, this is about a girl whose old aunt runs a bookshop. The aunt disappears, and the aunt was sort of a quirky character, and she disappears, and the girl goes to run the shop, and I think she's just going to kind of, in the beginning, her thought is, I'm just going to go in and see what's going on and sell everything off, and because they don't know what happened to the aunt. And so this is a story of her going in and deciding that she's going to maybe try and make a run for it with the bookshop and that kind of thing. And this was a really, really great story. It's very short, only like 165 pages. It has a little bit of magical realism in it, and it was just a really good story. I loved this. This, for me, strong 4-star book. This was probably more of like a 3-star, very good story, but you know, this is a book I'll probably keep because it just was really feel good kind of thing. Like I said, a little magical realism in here. Loved it, highly recommended. I found this book, I was checking out at my local independent bookshop, and it was up in the display right at the register, and how could you not buy a book that looks like this on the cover? Loved it. And my last book about bookshops is called, this I read electronically. It is called, and I'm just going to show you the cover. My Kindle is dead, or my iPad is dead, so I can't show it to you on my iPad, but it's called The Bookshop on the Corner. You're not even going to be able to see that. It's called The Bookshop on the Corner, and it's by Jenny Colgan, who I have read before, and it's relatively new. I think it came out the beginning of September or something, or mid-September, and this is about a girl who works in the book industry, I think maybe at a publishing house or a library, I can't remember exactly, but maybe a library. Yeah, she works at a library, and the libraries are merging together, and she's going to lose her job, and so she goes out and buys a van and creates a mobile bookshop, and it's sort of about all the antics that go on with creating the mobile bookshop, what she has to do in her life, all the characters she meets along the way, and sort of what happens to her along the way. There's lots of mistakes made, lessons learned, funny things happen, and I loved that book as well. Jenny Colgan writes really good, sort of humorous stories, funny characters, funny things happening. She's the one who wrote The Best Little Chocolate Shop in Paris or something that I talked about earlier on this year. So I really liked that. Again, it was called, what is the name of the book? The Bookshop on the Corner. And I really enjoyed that. So, okay, now let's talk about some of the books I have that I've read. So those are the books that I read that are about bookshops and book things that happen, and that kind of thing. Okay, the next book I read, which has book in the title, but it really isn't about bookstores, is called The Book That Matters Most, by Anne Hood. This is, I think, a relatively new book as well. I read this as part of a on like YouTube reading group that was hosted by Jen from Reading with Pugs, and this was a really good story. I didn't want to put this book down, so I'm going to read you the blurb and then tell you what I thought about the book. So Ava's 25-year marriage has fallen apart, and her 2 grown children are pursuing their own lives outside of the country. Ava joins a book group not only for her love of reading, but also out of sheer desperation for companionship. The group's goal throughout the year is for the members to present the book that matters most to them. Ava rediscovers a mysterious book from her childhood, one that helped her through the traumas of the untimely deaths of her sister and her mother. Alternating with Ava's story is that of her troubled daughter Maggie, who is living in Paris and goes missing. Ava's mission to find that book and its enigmatic author takes her on a quest that unravels the secrets of her past, ultimately reuniting her with Maggie and offering both of them the chance to remake their lives. So this woman's marriage breaks down. Her daughter, who we learn in the beginning, has been troubled, had trouble with drugs and alcohol and that kind of thing, has gone off to Europe for a year of study. And so she finds herself alone, and she's bored, and so she wants to be part of this book group. And each person in the book group has to pick a book that meant the most to them. So throughout this book, the book group is reading a lot of classics and that kind of thing. So this book talks a lot about those books and how the meaning of them changed each of these people's lives, which was great. So that was a really great part of this book, is that you got to revisit some of your favorite books. And so now that's driven me to sort of want to reread some of those, because a lot of those I read when I was younger, high school and college, and I think you get more out of them when you read the classics, when you've had more life experience and that kind of thing. So I might go back and read some of those. And then while that's going on, we've got this whole story about you know, this woman and her daughter and what's going on, and you know, and we're learning about some tragedy that happened to her when she was younger. You know, her mom died and her sister died, and you know, she's looking for this very special book that she read back then that sort of helped her through that time, and that's the book she wants her book group to read. And there's like a whole mystery around that, and so we learn kind of what happened to her throughout this book, and you know, through some of the things that are happening to her daughter, who is off in Europe misbehaving herself. So it's a lot about like a mother's love, and letting go of her daughter and letting her daughter do her things, and then like learning about her past and that kind of thing. This is not a perfect book for me. The characters, some of the characters in here are difficult to like, which for me can be challenging, but I get it that, you know, everybody's flawed, and like the daughter Maggie is just off the deep end with the drugs. But I know that happens, and people have to deal with that in their lives, and I've certainly experienced that in my life with the siblings. So there is a lot of that, which was sometimes hard to deal with. You just want to slap her and tell her to pull herself together. But, you know, people who are drug addicts sometimes can't. So, and like she wants to join this book group, but it's very exclusive, and they finally decide to let her in, which I think is like, and then the people in there are like, in the like her first book group meeting, they're judging her and that kind of stuff, which I thought was terrible, but I know that happens too in the real world. So I liked the story. I think it gave you enough twists and turns into the end. And then at the end, I thought it brought it all together really nicely. So this was really good. If you like reading books about that talk about some of the classics and other books in them, this is a good one. Again, The Book That Matters Most by Anne Hood. This is a strong 4 stars for me as well. Okay, I returned to the Benjamin Black novels. So he wrote a book that I talked about. Benjamin Black wrote a book that I talked about a few months ago, and this is the second book in that series called The Silver Swan. Now, they're not connected, the books are not like a connected series, like you need to read them in order, but I think it's helpful to read them in order because you learn about the lead character in here, Detective Quirk. You learn about his history in book 1, and then it continues a little bit in book 2. You can get just as much out of book 2, I think, without reading book 1, but book 1 was really good, so I highly recommend that. And that was called Christine Falls. And this is called The Silver Swan. So this is a mystery. Okay, I'll read the back real quick. It has been 2 years since the events of Christine Falls, the best-selling novel that introduced the world to an irascible Dublin pathologist named Quirk. Since then, his beloved Sarah has died, his surrogate father lies paralyzed by a stroke, and he's been sober for a year and a half. Or for a half a year, sorry. When a near-forgotten acquaintance asked him to cover up his beautiful young wife's apparent suicide, Quirk knows he should stay clear of this for the sake of his sobriety and his peace of mind. But the old itch is irresistible, and before long he is probing further into the circumstances of the young woman's death, discovering a web of drugs and illicit sex that has now begun to close in on his own daughter. With its vivid, intense evocation of 1950s Dublin and a gripping, irresistible mystery, The Silver Swan is even more engrossing than last year's Christine Falls. Okay, so there's a little blurb about the book. This was not as good as Christine Falls. I loved Christine Falls. This is a good mystery. It is set in 50s Dublin, so, you know, I like reading stories that are, you know, set in interesting times and interesting areas, and this certainly is one of those. I like the character of Quirk very, very much, and so I enjoyed the book because of that. The story is good. I don't know. For me, this is like a solid 3-star book. I liked it. I read it. It kept me interested, but it wasn't a book that I couldn't put down. So I am going to continue with this series, though, because I did hear book 2 was a little bit of a just okay, and then they get better again. So I do recommend this if you've read Christine Falls, that you read this, because I think if you're going to continue with the series, that you should read them in order. I'm trying to find the author's real name. I will put that here. Benjamin Black, so is a pen name for another author that he uses to write this series, and I will put that name here. I forget. So Silver Swan, liked it. Not the greatest book ever, in my opinion. Okay, now let's talk about another book that sucked. Can I just say that? I was so looking forward to reading this book, and it sucked. So this is the book called Istra by L.S. Hilton. L.S. Hilton. I'm going to read you a little bit of the blurb, and then I'm going to tell you why I think the book sucks. Just being honest. So, by day, Judith Rashley is a put-upon assistant at a prestigious London art house. By night, she's a hostess in one of the capital's notorious champagne bars. That's all I really need to read. So that's her deal. She's like an assistant in an art house during the day, and at night she's a hostess at a champagne bar, which is where she goes to drink champagne with rich men and get them to buy more champagne. And the more champagne they buy, the more very expensive champagne they buy, the more she makes. You know, she isn't actually a hooker, but I think a lot of the men are, a lot of what they do there leads to that kind of thing. I don't have a problem with that, her doing that. Like she's an assistant in an art house, but she doesn't make any money, and she's not making it. And because of the things that she wants in her life, she goes and puts herself in this position to, you know, to have to work in this champagne bar so she can make a lot of money, so she can have things. Not like a roof over her head things, but she wants to be able to, like, she wants designer shoes and bags and dresses, and she wants that life, but she doesn't make enough for that life, so she goes and puts herself in a position at this champagne bar to have those things. And so there's a story here too. There, I mean, it's a mystery and a thriller and that kind of thing, but I couldn't get away from, every page of this book is about and she wore this, and Louis Vuitton that, and Chanel this, and what, you know, and it was like enough, like tell the story, but like all the people like had to be the pretty people. She was wearing this, she wanted this, he was wearing that, they looked like this. I couldn't do it. Like it was too much, and this was supposed to be so good. It was too much of that kind of thing. It made me crazy. It took me a long time to read this book. I kept coming back to it because I kind of wanted to know what the mystery was, because I mean, the mystery was okay, but I can't read a book that, you know, we all like know people like that, where they think when they have, I drive a Ferrari and I have this kind of handbag and this, I don't like, it's fine if you need that, but don't preach it to me and like brag about it all the time. And this book was like, all these people thought they were that because they wore that dress and those shoes, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Don't waste your money. Don't waste your money. Like it was like, I can get through a lot. I couldn't get through that. No. So that one, no. I'll give it 1 star for the mystery. That's it. And I did want to talk about one last book that I read just because I thought it was really good. But I like reading books like this. So this was called, and you're not going to be able to see it, I don't think, but well, I'll put it there to see if you can. That's what the cover of the book looks like if you're looking for the cover. I read this electronically as well, and this was called 8 Months in Provence, A Junior Year Abroad 30 Years Later. And this is by Diane Covington Carter. And I do believe this is a memoir. So this story is about a woman who, her plan was her junior year to go live in Provence. To spend her junior year abroad in Provence. And right before she was a junior in college, she got pregnant. And so she couldn't go, obviously. So, you know, she married the man she was with at the time and lived her life. And, you know, her life has come to a point where she's no longer married. Her daughter is, I think it was a daughter, yes, her daughter is grown. And she's going to go have a year abroad like she wanted back then. And it's sort of like getting her life together enough to be able to go do this, the things that happened to her along the way, and what happens to her during her 8 months. She does it for 8 months. And she's sort of at a time in her life where it's now or never, because she's got a sister who's very, very ill, and she can go now and still get back in time to help her sister, you know, before her end comes, if it's going to come. And so she does this, and it's about the people she meets. It's about what she learns about herself, what she learns about, you know, living in Provence and that kind of thing. And I love books like this. I loved they're not all memoirs, but I loved like Under the Tuscan Sun, which was a very similar story. I loved A Year in Provence, and this is 8 Months in Provence. And so this was a great story if you like reading about people like Americans or people from other countries who go try and live in a country for a year and sort of the experiences they have. That's what this was, and it was really, really good. And it talked about, like her mother came to see her, and she had sort of a strained relationship with her mother, and it's how that improved because of what she learned about herself when she went to live on her own in a country where she doesn't speak the language very well. And then her sick sister came, and they got to spend some quality time together, away from her sister's situation, and where the author felt she was most at home, and that kind of thing. And so it was really, really a great story. I'm pretty sure it's a memoir. I will notate that here. I think it's a true story. But I highly recommend it as well if you like books like that. Strong 4 for me. 4 stars out of 5 on that one. So those are the books I've been reading. I think I caught you up on everything, and I know I went kind of fast on some of the books, but if you have any questions about them, you can comment below and I will try to get back to you. So that is it. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. Let us know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you thought. Also, if you have book recommendations, I would love to hear them. If you've read any of Anne Hood's other books, I'd be curious to know. She wrote like The Obituary Writer and The Knitting Circle and a few other books as well. And I like her writing style. So if you've read those books and you like them, let me know as well. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. That is it for today. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day, and I will talk to you all again soon.